Hello, welcome to the Political Frame as presented by Dennis Carter, Flo Chung, Amparo Medina, and Jonathan Smith for EDL 501. A frame is a mental model, a set of ideas and assumptions that you carry in your head to help you understand and negotiate a particular territory. Reframing involves asking questions to break your frame and shift points of view. The particular frame that we are focusing on right now is the political frame. According to Bolman and EDL, the political frame sees organizations as competitive arenas of scarce resources, competing interests, and struggles for power and advantage. Conflict is rampant because of enduring differences in needs and perspectives. Bargaining, negotiation, coercion, and compromise are a normal part of everyday life. Coalitions form around specific interests. While listening to this presentation, we ask you to analyze your own institution with this frame in mind and consider the following. Who has power? What are the coalitions? What are their agendas? What is your role within the organization?
So that is why the jungle is a strong metaphor where animals live in ecosystems with scarce resources that is a matter of life and death. When they're hunting each other or fighting for water or shelter, there are different ways for animals to assume power, just like in organizations. On this slide, Bowman and EDL list 9 types of powers on pages 192 to 193. And notice it's not only those with authority have all the power. For instance, we frequently describe the lion as the king of the jungle, yet there are many animals that still exist and thrive. There are individuals or coalitions who may control the rewards, like the hippos who dominate the watering hole. In an organization, there are some individuals or departments that have the information and expertise, while there are others who have personal or reputation powers because of their earned trust, charisma, or alliances. In your jungle, which individuals or coalitions hold which type of powers in your organization? And do these powers produce conflict in your organization?
For many, the word politics has a negative connotation. As a result, there can be a push to remove politics from management. But if we instead look for more positive associations and attributes of the manager as a politician, it allows for politics to take on a beneficial meaning, leading to a positive outcome. Bolman and EDL note the manager as a politician exercises 4 key skills: agenda setting, mapping the political terrain, networking and building coalitions, and bargaining and negotiating. With agenda setting, effective leaders create an agenda for change consisting of 2 major pieces. Creating a plan of how they will accomplish their vision. This vision is about balance and strategy, keeping in mind the interests and needs of key constituents and stakeholders while recognizing and understanding competing and external forces. Bolman and EDL state, vision without strategy will remain an illusion. The next skill of mapping the political terrain is all about communication. It's about knowing who is in the game and what each player wants. Networking building coalitions is comprised of 3 tasks. Identify whose help do you need. Develop relationships or cheerleaders. For example, for middle management, one of the first steps may be getting your boss on board, then move on to peers, stakeholders, and then building a resource base, promising rewards in exchange for resources and support. As a manager, you need friends and allies to get things done. To build a support, you need coalitions. Ignoring or misreading people's roles and networks can be costly. For example, dismissing a constituent base who may have a representative who is in the rooms when the decisions are made can be dangerous. The final skill, bargaining and negotiating, Lax and Sabanius noted the foundational dilemma in negotiations is about creating value versus claiming value. Value creators are about finding better solutions for both parties. Value claimers is about doing whatever it takes to win as much as you can. An alternative, identified as a win-win approach to negotiations, was created by Fisher and Urey, which comprised of 4 strategies. Separate people from the problem. When you remove one from the other, you can avoid personal attacks and instead analyze the problem. Focus on interests and not positions. We only know what we know. If we focus solely on one certain position, we might overlook more meaningful opportunities to achieve our goal. Invest in options instead of getting locked into the first alternative. More options increase the chances of a better outcome. Insist on objective criteria. Create a mutual understanding on substance and procedures at the beginning can help support optimism, momentum, and even create empowerment. In the end, how do you decide to balance creating value versus claiming value? It may be by analyzing how much opportunity is there for a win-win solution, and will you have to work with these people in the future? This in turn leads to a connected issue of morality and politics. Democratic cycles and politics can leave individuals feeling vulnerable, powerless, and helpless. We worry if we provide someone else with too much power, they will use that power against us. It's then that we become manipulative in order to protect ourselves. To change this cycle, managers need to create and support a sense of empowerment while empowering themselves in the process. Four important principles of moral judgment are mutuality, generality, openness, and caring. Within these principles are also several questions that can be used to evaluate a leader's actions, or we can use to analyze our own actions. Are you following the rules that are mutually understood and accepted? Are you comfortable discussing and defending your choices? Would you want to be on the receiving end of your own actions? Would the world be better or worse if everyone acted as you did? And finally, are there alternatives you could consider that rest on firmer ethical ground? In the end, organizations are political. It's the kind of politics used to achieve a purpose that make a difference.
Chapter 11 of Bolman and Deal's Reframing Organizations examines organizations as political arenas and political agents. As political arenas, organizations set the stakes, the rules of the game, and the parameters for the players. Although traditional thought would lead one to believe the best design is the design that contributes the most to efficiency, strategy, and achieving goals, one must shift their thought to viewing organizations as political arenas of contending claims. This brings up the question, whose preferences are to be served by an organization? As Bolman and Deal wrote, what is effective for students may be ineffective for administrators. Effectiveness as defined by consumers may be ineffective as defined by stakeholders. So as previously mentioned, when thinking about an organization, we should view it not as an expression of an organization's goals, but as political embodiment of contending claims. So what does this mean? Since organizations are coalitions, participants have varying interests. The critical questions become not how organizations should be defined to maximize effectiveness, but rather whose preferences and interests are to be served by the organization. When identifying sources of enterprises, one must imagine the organization with two types of political initiatives: bottom-up initiatives, which rely on grassroots mobilization, which depends on the groups to declare their interests. Examples of these can be workers' unions or student movements. There's also top-down initiatives which rely on authority to inspire and influence workforces. While we have politics that exists internally within organizations, organizations themselves can also be considered political agents in larger arenas. As Bolman and Deal state, as political actors, organizations need to master many of the basic skills of individual managers as politicians. Develop an agenda, map the environment, manage relationship with both allies and enemies, and negotiate compacts, accords, and alliances. Organizations can be viewed as political ecosystems placing their own interests first while simultaneously competing for limited resources. Examples of this can be seen through public policy ecosystems involving the FAA or education, business government ecosystems involving organizations like FedEx or pharmaceutical companies, and society as an ecosystem, which include business, government, and the public. These relationships, like in nature, are collaborative, interdependent, and competitive, similar to the jungle which was discussed in Chapter 9. Please look at the speaker's notes for a brief description of these political ecosystems at work. For a more detailed look, please look to Bolman and Deal's Reframing Organizations, page 234 to 242. In conclusion, we'd like to circle back to the four questions we opened our presentation with. Who has the power? What are the coalitions? What are their agendas? And what is your role in the organization? At its foundation, institutions are political arenas made up of power, conflict, managers, and coalitions fighting or working together with scarce resources.